Hi, and welcome to Soul Activation Podcast, a world-class broadcast of spiritual insight and inspiration with me, Suzanne, Alexandria. In this series, we dive deep into the magical sea of you, to that place in you that's ready to activate, but might not even know what that means. Do you crave to be more spiritually connected? Intriguing, fun, and full of magic, we'll laugh and cry and talk about how crazy this life is. Offering healing and insights to lean into, this show broadcasts from pure divine love. Are you ready to light your eternal flame, to spark some magic? Let's talk transformation. So it is my deepest honor to welcome Tamara Jorden. She is one of my soul sisters, and she's a catalyst for deep transformation herself. She is a gift, and it's her birthday. She's doing this with us on her birthday. So happy birthday, TJ.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To be with you today.
Thank you. Tamara is many things to many people. She's a mystic. She's a teacher. She's definitely a thought leader. She's an amazing friend, and she's a sacred death doula. And if callers have any questions about any of that, we would welcome calls. And in her journey, she's come to find this magical kind of pairing of the things that we're talking about. In some blessed way, I know that Tamara was able to come to these kind of deep knowings early on. You've always been a seeker. You've always been on a quest for divine inspiration, divine light, divine love. And you bless so many with that presence. And I can't wait to have you share a little bit more about the what and the how. So Tamara, anything else you want to say as we begin?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you're saying and about just the ways that people conceive different things. And part of what led you and I to the beauty of this discussion is we were talking about coming into the wholeness and the understanding that we are loved by the divine, and that's not just words or a pretty bumper sticker, but that's real and that's true. And to learn to live in relationship with the divine and to accept that love within yourself, so that you can be empowered to find the ways that you give in this world that are uniquely yours. And so that sort of led us to the subject of respect, because the way that you came to understand divine love was that you found self-respect, you learned to respect yourself, and then you could trust that the divine would love you. And I have a more evangelical Christian background. So for me, I knew that I was divinely loved, had cultivated that mystical relationship. And a mystical relationship is simply one in which you believe that the divine will have God, the universe, whatever term you like, man, run with that. We're just going to use different ones as they come up so that we try to hit everybody. But whatever your term is for that amazing, beautiful, capital S source of all the best of what we are that transcends us, go ahead and apply that. But I came to an understanding of divine love from God by the vehicle of having had that sort of prayer, and then came to believe that I had self-worth because some love that was so huge and so amazing would care for me. So you and I kind of came to respect from two different angles. But the one thing that we do share is a clear understanding that in the spiritual community, there are a lot of toys and sparkles and fun things that you can play with. And we have crystals, and we have, Reiki, and we have healing, and we have all of the thinking where we just call it in and make sure our energy is perfect so we can align to what we want. Those are all lovely things, but they're not the point of spirituality. The point of spirituality is to enter into that relationship where you know that you are loved and you may love back, And from that place, you give the world the best of who you are and what you are capable of. So anyway, so that's how we ended up at this subject of respect. And I think that's sort of a beautiful thing to mention to people, to think about as they kind of contextualize some of the things that we'll talk about today.
That's perfect. And I know this to be that, you know, there are a lot of people who understand that, but I find probably maybe even more don't quite understand that deep knowing. I mean, I grew up also in a church, but what was the catalyst for you of like, you came to that deep knowing at such a young age? I just know from your story. Can you talk about what led you into that?
Well, you know, in our house, prayer or God, those were things that were always talked about. And you know, Jesus loves me and Jesus loves all the children in the world. And those were things that were taught to you. So it was sort of an advantage to me that I had the structure to know that there was love possible. But the point at which it became more personalized, because you can believe it abstractly and you will have a particular life path with that. But if you dare to believe that it could be personalized to you, that you could be loved personally, that's a transcendent journey. And for me, that came when I began to pray and to write down. I met people who said, well, you know, if God talks to people in the Bible, why would he not talk to us? And I was young and I thought, well, yeah. And so I would sit I would try to get in a dark room and I would close everything and I would pray and I would say, tell me what, you know, will serve me. Or I would pray for people and I would say, will you give me some kind of answer so I can go give it back? And from that place, I began to hear small messages, nothing, you know, I don't think I have the book of Isaiah in me. But
you got another one.
I hope I have another. I hope we all do. But from that place, I began to understand that God loves us and that if we seek relationship, and what do you do in any relationship? You spend time and you put effort into that being. And in this case, that being is God. And so I devoted, you know, a certain amount of time, not like I didn't become a nun. I was never cloistered, that kind of a thing. But sometimes what you're open to allow is the thing that just opens the door to so much better. So me being open to the idea that I was loved, that's what allowed me to go much further in an understanding of how to relate to the divine and how to begin to sense, integrate, and embody the love of God in me. And you know, people say, what do you know for sure in life? Oprah's great question, right? And I always say, this is what I know, that we came from love and to love we shall return. And what we do in the middle is our gift back unto that love. And I really believe that we don't have to do it being unattached to our source. And that's the big S.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just always so in honor of that, because you somehow came to this, like the switch was on where there's knowing and there's knowing. And there's like the fact that you started a conversation. I didn't get that. And that's okay. But I bet a lot of listeners might not have either, where you came to a knowing that you actually could pray and ask and then hear back. I kind of think like that's the secret, like the knowing and the belief and the trust that at such an early age, I just honor that. And you're such a representation, and you've taught me to do that as well. So if there are any listeners who doubt that process, I think it's not automatic. You took action, you closed out the world to get into that beautiful spiritual relationship.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing that I had is blessing. And this is my hope for all listeners, actually. The thing that I had as blessing is that some of the most beautiful, amazing people that I wanted to be like in my own way, show my own light, but whose character was so fine, prayed and got their answers. And that struck me as something that was fundamental. And I think it's a shame that we don't teach more people in various faith traditions or not faith traditions, that you have every right to a relationship with whatever transcends you, with the universe. And you have only to ask. Now, it's like with any relationship where you kind of begin starting off slow and then you kind of figure each other out. It's organic in that way because it's truly a relationship. What I know and trust about divine love now is 20 years on in learning to trust. And it's become more beautiful and richer and more holy and more supportive of anything that happens in my life. I know I don't deal with it alone. And I think that's really, we don't have to walk alone. That's a choice. So if anyone is listening and it is within their heart that they want to know love and want to know what it's like to be in a relationship with the divine, capital D, then this is probably a good show for you to get some basic ideas about that, because that's really the heart of what we're here to say, is that it doesn't take someone special. You don't need to be a priest. You don't need to have the right stones. You don't need to do the right ceremony. You just need an honest, open heart and a desire to do it. And then as you get shown, oh, something else you can try to add in, something else. You know, if you do Joe Dispenza's meditations or you do the prayer of St. Catherine, whatever it takes for you that's appropriate, that's the thing you do. But it's a relationship. So it takes a belief that it can go forward. And it takes the effort, just the general effort to want to be a relationship. And the other thing that I think is really important in a relationship that maybe isn't always taught is when you're in a relationship and you want it to go long term, the one skill that I find most important is to be able to see your beloved, and no matter what happens, to be able to hold true to the truth of who you know them to be. Whatever the storms come and go, you hold truth to the truth of who you know them to be and to their goodness. Now, there are exceptions to that. If someone begins behaving abusively, if someone moves into states of cruelty or unkindness or violence, it is only appropriate that you can have that knowledge in your head, but you need to physically, probably psychologically separate yourself from that person. I am not advocating at any point that you stay connected to an abusive person, whether that's psychological, physical, emotional, whatever. But in a normal relationship that is healthy and that you wish to go long-term, what you have to be able to do is to never forget, no matter how big an idiot they are, how beautiful they are from their heart. When you're dealing with the divine, a little bit different, because I've yet to find the divine to be a big idiot.
Do we know?
You know, the tenets of good relationship skills, they come into play because it's
a relationship. And that is another thing you have taught me, especially very recently. And like thinking about it, when we were nuns, nuns probably today still put a ring on, like they have a ceremony and devote themselves and marry God. I don't know all the terms or anything, but it was really eye-opening for me with, in working with you, as you so blessedly have and do, like to realize I could turn my head upward, and that relationship, I know it's always there, but it needs to be tended. And I'm the only one who can do that. I have to wake up and turn my head up and turn into my heart. And because it is a relationship, and starting to think about it like a partnership, where the other big thing that you said was sometimes it's crappy, because I might not be in connection. There are downtimes when I am mad or I'm in a place and I'm like, nobody loves me. It's much worse than that. I'll keep it radio talk, but
thank you.
But like remembering that that's just me going offline for a while, and I get to come back online, but I have to, like I'm the one that has to come back online and get back centered. And then when I do, it's like, why did I even step off? But that's life.
That's life. And it's imperfect. That was one of the big things, because my background was that if you weren't good enough, that God would be upset, displeased, and punish you, or, not like you, that you would disappoint God. Well, that's, what more could you put on somebody than the kind of that, right? But the more that that I moved away from all the talk of various denominational take on it, and I moved into my own heart and just saying, I'm going to have to, if I'm going to one day reunite with love, then I'm going to need to know love direct between me and love. And the thing that I came to see is that there is no condemnation, and there is no impatience almost, and that rather there is such an understanding that we are imperfect, that you almost come to realize that the way that you are loved is that you are perfectly imperfect. And if you don't know love like that in your life, oh man, I can't advocate anything more than that. Everybody gets their choice of what might be right or wrong for them. But if you, that's the best love ever. And I have grandkids and children and a lovely spouse whom I adore. Those things are great. And I have amazing friends. But when you know that all that you are is loved, no matter how imperfect or ridiculous or goofy, that changes your life. And you're able to love. And Suze, you know this so well. You're able to love and serve so much better because you have integrated, embodied divine love in you.
Integration. Yeah. Thank you. So let's switch our focus into that integration. And what does respect have to do with any of this? What are we talking about with respect?
Well, first of all, we should define respect. Yeah. So I have my phone here, so I'm going to read off of it. All high tech.
Yeah. Webster's 101.
Respect is a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something, elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. It is the state of being admired or respected, and it is due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others. So if you respect, you offer honor because someone else is worth it. So that's what respect is. And it can be for others, but the other really potent part is respect for ourselves, who we are.
Yeah. Often, well, for me, that was a very difficult path to come to that. And I'm sure many listeners can relate, because I was brought up and I've had situations and relationships that took me like quintessentially into such codependence and always looking outward for validation and for a person to respect me or think me good enough, that I didn't even really know that the necessity of respecting myself and my own desires, right? And my own structure, what I want for a life. And so when Tamara and I began to talk about this discussion, that's where there were all these aha moments, at least for me, of like, wow, it's so fundamental to the spiritual journey and that integration, which I kind of see like a braid of God and me and love. You can't have any of that if you don't have like respect for the process and respect for the other and respect for yourself. It's almost like one of the most important underpinnings of the whole thing. And I don't know why that's just finally coming to me like, wow, because it helps you go from that leap of like knowing you're loved. I think I know, because I was brought up like, I know God loves me. I know Jesus loves me, but it was like up here. It wasn't in my core necessarily.
Yeah, 100%. And I think until you can internalize that and allow it to be true for yourself, that you are loved and that you are worthy of respect, it's often hard to give it to others, in this world. For me, knowing that I was loved is the thing that allowed me, the last thing that everybody's personality is wired a little bit different. I always took care of everybody else and then me. So I had kind of a classic codependent life story up to a certain point. But once I realized that I am loved as much as anybody else in the room, and further, that it is my job to take care of me first, and then everybody else in my watch that I believe is appropriate, and that I can do so with healthy boundaries, not be a doormat. That's not love. If you're a doormat, you're actually using somebody else to get love. So that's not a good thing. So I find
it doesn't work so well.
No, it doesn't work so hot. It's a tough sell. But no matter, I love what you said about that you can philosophically understand that there is love and that we are loved, but it's really a different gig than when you allow it to drop into your heart, into your embodied experience, into your lived experience. And the part of the deal here is that as long as it's just this abstract thought to you, then you are going to believe that what you do with your crystals, or if you thought exactly perfect and called in the right thing, and you're going to believe all those things will long-term will sustain you. But the truth is that long-term, only love sustains us. Only love. And that takes us right back again to, where did we come from? We came from love, capital L. That might be backwards because I have dyslexia. So whichever way it is.
It's because of the video. It's all good.
I can mess it up either way, I'm pretty sure. But it is true that until you embody love, the reason why you play with the crystals, the reason why you speak to people who've passed over, all the whys become infused, imbued. They have so much more meaning when you, the one who's dealing with them, become, transcendently aware of the truth of who you are, who you are. That whole, in the 70s, there was that whole movement of who am I and finding yourself, right? And I think we only find ourselves through knowing that we are loved. No matter how good or bad that we are loved. And then from that place, we can find ways to serve that are unique to us in the world. We don't have to have a spiritual job. We, I believe that enlightened dentists and teachers and garbage men and, your preschool teacher, whoever, that everybody, once they know their love, they can figure out how in their life is best to serve. And if that's, as an accountant in a corner office, rock on, however you can shine the light of your love is groovy. It's not groovy. I use that forever. And it's beautiful. However that is for you.
Yeah.
When you get to that place, when you dare to say, I'm going to be open to the idea that I am loved. And if I don't know how to take it in right now, I'm going to keep figuring it out until I get there. For me, it was learning to learn the language of the divine, what these slow, gentle hints going on in the world that would go right by me. And I didn't realize, oh, that's a sign of love, you took care of me today. Because
you're so unique with that, but that's gratitude too. Like that's what we have. That's the action we take, right? Oh yeah, that is for me. Oh yeah. I almost missed it, but I didn't.
Yeah. And not doing that thing where like something happens and you're like, oh, God's showing me that I'm loved. And then you don't do that thing where you go, okay, I was totally making that up. No, that can't be right. You just talk yourself right flat out of it.
Yeah.
Not helpful. Not helpful. I mean, don't make a bunch of stuff up. I'm not indicating that, but when something happens, have the kind of courage that you call it and go, I think that was a sign of how loved I am, and let it be.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're in a moment, we're going to go to a break, Tamara, but one thing I want to just acknowledge a couple things that you do. And what I'm thinking for the second half is that we can also give some tactics, because between us, we've got a good array that we can leave listeners with today of, how do you do some of this? So we'll do that. We'll also take any live calls or questions from listeners. You can chime in by on Facebook too, if you just want to comment. But before the break, I want to ask you about the name of your company, Grit and Grace. And so as you're thinking about that question and what you want to say, I just want to acknowledge, because through all of this, you've become a powerful leader. You co-lead this beautiful women's group called Legacy 22. It's full of powerful leaders. And you have your own crystalline brilliance circle, and you are imbuing this wisdom in so many different ways. But you're the CEO of your company, Grit and Grace Enterprises. And I love the quote that is about grit and grace. So would you say that to the listeners and just explain how what that all means to you?
I think, the name comes because I believe that life is precisely this. It is the fine balance of grit and grace. Grit being that we suit up, show up, and we work as hard as we can. We believe in what we think is right and we go for it. And grace, that just blessing beyond what we really deserved, but we were fortunate enough to get anyway. And we are grateful that we got it. So life becomes about grit and grace. And both parts of the componentry, I think, make the fullest, most beautiful life.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. I always love when you talk about that. So thank you. Okay, we're going to go to a short break. And when we come back, callers are welcome, and we'll talk more about respect and love and integration. Activation Podcast. I'm Suzanne Alexandria, and you can find me at SuzanneAlexandria.com and on Instagram at Suzanne Alexandria Coaching. I'm a coach, I'm a healer, and I like to think of myself as a freedom catalyst. And today we're talking about some topics that are so integral to my journey and many of our journeys to come actually into true inner freedom. And it is just such a pleasure to have my guest, Tamara Jorden. It's her birthday. She's with us on her birthday, talking about some of the core fundamental principles that you've taught me, that you teach others on the path to true freedom. Because there's freedom, and then there's freedom. There's love, and then there's love, knowing we're loved. So we've been talking about so many different aspects of this, of respect, and we want to branch into the movement of, thinking it's all about me when it's really all about we, right? Like it's all about we. And also, the fact that the divine is part of our success. I want to hit on that too, because a lot of people walk around thinking they did it all, but they don't even realize they have a spiritual team that's always bringing them the next opportunity or what they ask for or what they want to manifest. The spirit's such a part of manifestation. And that's one of my bugaboos these days is in the world of manifestation. But let's talk about the me, the only me kind of issue. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that in the early 2K, when we were wearing those velour juicy track suits, I just want to go back there. Those who were too young. I'm sorry.
I never had one, but yeah.
I didn't either. A whole J-Lo look,
Oh yeah. Okay.
She still looks great in, but
yeah.
Side note.
She can rock it. I can't.
Yeah, she alone should be allowed to wear that. But it was during that time when it really became popular, where people were like, me, it's all about me, and I'm taking time for myself. Listen, self-care is a good, a healthy, and a necessary thing. However, the flimsy little bumper sticker version that got popular was, it's all about me. It's never all about you. I just want to smack people to say that anyway, because I just think it's fundamentally incredibly selfish. It's one thing to have self-respect and take care of yourself. It's another to just be completely self-consumed. Because part of the reason that you're here is not only to take care of yourself, your soul in this bodysuit in this lifetime that you got downloaded into. That's cool. But what you do with it is you do good in the world in a way that's appropriate for you and your gifts and your talents, your abilities, and your, where you've been called to. So whatever that is. So a focus on the self for the sake of the self and nothing else is shallow. It's a mere reflection of the beauty of, I love myself and I need a break right now. So I'm going to step back and take that time. I'm going to do the things that edify my soul, whatever they are, my heart, my mind, or I'm even going to watch trashy TV because I just need a break. Whatever it is, a polite, respectful step back, radically different thing than, just some of the cheap, flimsy behavior that was advocated with. It's all about me. It's never all about you. I don't think that it has to be always about all of us. I think that there are times when it's about you, but that line of, I can just be selfish and now it's justified, that's not spiritual at any point.
Yeah. And I mean, it occurs to me that the question is, so if you're looking at yourself, yeah, it is about me. And what do I do with all of this? How do I use it? How do I serve? Or how do I go out and create? Because the Creator gave us these hands and these brains and bodies to do magical things. And I have been pondering a lot with manifestation. And I've been starting to call it, I don't know if, I'm sure other people do this, but I'm calling it, and my guides are encouraging me to call it co-manifestation, because they're saying, like, don't ever think that spirit's not part of the picture, that we're not with you, that you're doing it all alone. And it's such a limiting belief to think that that's all there is you.
Have you really woken up if you think that's all there is you? I mean, the point of waking up, of enlightenment, is realizing that we are transcendent beings who came from an almighty source that we don't fully understand. And that's okay. Just the whole, you and I were long ago on the co-creation bandwagon, that we know that we're here to do certain things, but that extra edge, that extra love, that extra support that we get comes from that relationship with divine love that gives us greater clarity, more profound inspiration, and indeed the endurance to really do great things on this earth, to use our time so that when we leave it all on the floor.
Yeah.
We are not walking
Mic
out.
drop. We did it.
We did it. If you're serious about coming here to live, you need to hook up with love, get the full download, man. I mean, seriously, it so upgrades your experience to be connected to love and then create from that place. I mean, it's the difference between, I don't know, what do you say, like electric and nuclear, or, two things that would be direct,
supercharged,
greater magnitude, Why would you want to live your life without that power? Like, could you not find within yourself just a little bit of daring to say, I kind of want to be loved that way. I kind of want to know if that's real. I kind of want to know what I have in my tank, to co-create a life that's bigger and more beautiful. That's what you and I are finding for ourselves. And that's why we're having the conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, To me, that's such a brand new thought for me and probably for a lot of listeners. But maybe could you give listeners, what do you do during your day to keep that, to keep your own heart open and that big gas, like the channel flowing? What do you do? What are some of your secrets?
Well,
or practices?
First of all, I chuck the notion that perfect is possible, because it's not. So I start out with trying to be real and true. So a couple things that I do, I try to, as soon as I open my eyes, when you're kind of between that state of waking all the way up, I try to think about, first of all, I say, thank you that I'm here, and thank you for my life, and thank you for Suzanne. Just thank you for the people that love me. Thank you for the blessings, even the ones I seem to take for granted. I try to enter a space of gratitude. Gratitude is
right away
rocket fuel.
Mm-hmm.
It is rocket fuel because it pulls your attention into the kind of space you need to be in to create best, and to create, the best energy, and to draw it into you and all those things. But also because it's true. And there's a kind of a side note thing that Suze and I have really talked a lot about that I think really might benefit other people to consider. Mm-hmm. And that is about being truthful. Being willing, able, and delivering on admitting the truth to yourself and sometimes to others is mm-hmm. everything. Mm-hmm. Because if you can be true, well, I love how Jesus said it, that when you know the truth, it sets you free. Mm-hmm. And it does. So if I can be honest with myself about who I am or about what's going on, or honest about how someone else is behaving and what that really is, even though I don't want to think that about them or whatever, if mm-hmm. I can be honest and marry it with my compassion and grace, because once you know grace, it's much easier to give grace. So if I can be honest about what's going on in my life, then I can, have those moments with my Creator and just say, this is what's going on. I need help. I need inspiration. I need vision. I need support. I need an extra $150, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I'm now in a place where I'm empowered, but having the guts to be honest about where I am and what's going on is huge, mm-hmm. And really putting a premium on speaking the truth.
Yeah.
I'm a person who loves to affirm people and I look and I try to find what's good about them and then call it out so they know I saw it. I think one of my gifts is to bear witness to people. So that's, mm-hmm. I sort of do that as my MO, mm-hmm. but I like a personal rule. If it's not true, I don't care what, it's not going to come out of my mouth. I'm not going to say, you look beautiful today if you look like a train wreck. Because neither one of us could trust me if I did that. Mm-hmm. But also one of the things that ups the positive energy and your ability to move forward and expand is to exist within the truth. And that begins with you and your choices and your stories that you tell yourself. Like if I start to get sort of a depressed mindset or whatever, I sort of call myself on it. When I hear that story running in my head that's super negative, I say, is that true? Does she really hate your guts? Is she, is that person really, want to ruin your whole life with their choice? And if it's not true, I make myself pull into the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that that's helpful because we find God, we find love in truth. And mm-hmm. so I just want to bring that into the discussion. Mm-hmm. Be in integrity. You got to be willing to allow the truth to be told. And you need to understand that over time, the more you tell the truth and you see divine love meet you and show you creative different paths through your through the hard things that come up, the more you can trust. And that's the other word. Trust is a choice. It's a choice to trust somebody or someone or to trust love. And choosing to trust, it's like a muscle. You build it and over time it gets stronger and stronger. So I know that's like a not your linear answer to your question, but mm-hmm. those are some different things that I employ to keep my relationship. And I write down prayers. Sometimes if I wake up at 2:00, I say, okay, if I get really quiet, what do you want to tell me? And I just, actually, I put it on my phone and I type it up, and I don't read it till the next morning. And some of the most amazing and beautiful messages have come through. That's not something for everybody, but you have to find your thing. I have a friend who gardens. That's when she feels the most in contact with divine love. I have friends that hike and that love wilderness. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is friends who cook, dance. Yeah. Whatever your thing is, find that thing where there's just such peace and goodness, and you're probably feeling the love of God made manifest in you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no word of a lie. For me, it's when I take my first sip of coffee too. I'm like, oh, this is a good day. I drink it in, but it's ceremonial. And it's like, oh yeah, this feels good. And I'm loved. Yeah. Little things like that. I find I have to pepper lots of them through my day, because to keep me, we have to keep ourselves plugged in.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit now about integration. All these words, their vibrations and their ways, like trust, respecting. And by the way, respecting yourself sometimes, telling yourself the truth is one of the most respectful things you can do. And as a coach and someone who works with people, and myself included, who've experienced deep trauma and very dysfunctional marriages often, I'm in the position often, as you have been with me, to say, we have to look at the truth. We have to respect you enough to look at this relationship, this marriage, this father or mother relationship, and say, what is really the truth? And when you can crack that and realize it's the most loving thing that you can do for yourself if you've experienced trauma or you're in a dysfunctional marriage or relationship with anybody, it's the going with right in here and saying, all right, I am willing to respect myself enough to look. And that's what you helped me with a couple of years ago, starting to crack open and say, I don't even want to, I don't know what's there, but I'm going to do it. And it turns out now in retrospect, I didn't think that at the time, but I know now it was like the most benevolent thing to me was to allow the divine to show me what wasn't so copacetic, to say the least. And then in my case, it unleashed a whole lot. But I had to come to that if I wanted to really be free, which is really what I wanted. So respecting yourself enough to face your fears, mm-hmm. right? To face your dark shadow, to face the person who might be abusing you and walk away. I mean, how much more self-respect can you have than to walk away from someone who's harming you? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're being harmed until we really step away. That was true for me. I didn't even know the harm I was in mm-hmm. until I stepped away, but I did trust the messages that I got to walk away. So it kind of like it came in that circuitous way, as often it does. But if you're in a knowing that you need to look at a relationship and yourself and who you're being, because it's disrespectful, yeah, so-and-so can be disrespectful, but if you're staying in that place and being disrespected, that's on you, that's the truth. Is it's in your power to see that and perceive it and make a change. And we don't always like to hear about that or talk about those hard choices. Like, they seem so hard, and people I work with go through that. But then, when I've gone through it myself and you've walked by my side, when you get to the other side of it, I wouldn't change anything for that. I didn't even know how much I was being denigrated or disrespected, and I come from severe childhood trauma, and it was my comfort, frankly, it was my comfort zone to be in a place like that. But now, now I've been able to reframe what love is and what my parameters are and what I will and won't be in. And it's everything. And that is a mighty holy love that brought me to that, with you right there and my angels. And I wouldn't be there if I hadn't trusted. So it doesn't matter the order that it comes in, right? Like it's like, will you be willing to take a leap of faith and look at the truth and respect yourself, respect and know that there's a process to it. It's a process. It takes commitment. It's a relationship.
Don't you think, now that you've been through, wow, baby, we walked through a lot of really big, hard things together. And that you have had the guts to face down all of your fears and your demons and the things that have come up, just like any of us who make this walk would do. But don't you think that no matter how scary that you thought that it was, and how convinced on some level that you should not go into this dragon's den,
or there's not a dragon's den. I did a lot of storytelling. There's no dragon's den. What are you talking about?
There's not. Why are you people acting that way? Right. But don't you think that you find in the end that the truth is so much easier to bear than you imagine? And that it's not just easier to bear, it's actually the path out. We've paint all these stories for ourselves, why we shouldn't face the truth, or why the truth's not about us. That's everybody else, or that's not going to impact my kids. That's just between him and me if he hits me. It's never, first of all, if you're listening to this, my heart to you, it's never just between you and him. If anybody here is abusive, it will impact your kids, and you need to understand that and own it. And I say that with a lot of compassion for that. But, there are a lot of reasons why you might think, oh, my being in denial about this, or my creating a different story for myself is helpful. The truth alone is what sets you free. Although I would say this, I always add the Gloria Steinem little addition on it. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And I think that actually is the truth, is that many times the truth, it makes you so darn mad. Ask Suzanne.
Oh, I've been known to throw a tantrum or two when I hear the truth.
But you always get there because your heart is pure. You want to know love on greater and greater levels and to give it in this world. And so you've been willing each time to face the truth and then let that process clean out whatever needs to be cleaned out and healed and made stronger and better. I mean, your level of service, and, I know a lot of the people that come to you for life counseling, part of the reason why they rave about you is because of you have walked the path. You get what it's like to come from a traumatic or bad marriage situation. Maybe that's a form of trauma. I'm not.
It is, yeah.
But you get it. You understand, and you have compassion for that. And, I always said, Suzanne, to my dear friends, I've always said, I don't care what you have to say to me. I want you to tell me the truth. I just want you to tell it to me compassionately. And that's the key here, is to face the truth, to tell it to others and to ourselves with compassion.
And isn't that the most respectful thing we can do in ascending and in growing and living freely? Daring to see the truth, know it. It does set you free. And I never would have put two and two together and put this with respect, but it is so integral. It really is this beautiful, beautiful process.
If you want to know what respect is, you have to be willing to pay the price of truth. But you know what? Maybe that's the admission price. There is no bigger win on the board
Mm-hmm.
Live in the kind of freedom that the truth buys you with your respect intact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it really does, as we're finding, it leads to this beautiful integration of all of you. You know, when we're going through a spiritual awakening or healing process, we're literally like unplugging and getting rid of and shedding so many old parts of us, so many old stories, so many old beliefs, and then bringing in this kind of light. And these practices and these truths are what like reweave us, our new tapestry. I love this whole idea of the weaving or the braiding of it. So
yeah, that's so beautiful. Suze, if you're not here, I have this motto, because I, do a lot of volunteer work and things. And my motto has always been that you need to bring value, or why are you here?
Yeah.
And maybe in a way with self-respect, that's part of what we're saying, is that when you respect yourself, you bring value to the equation we call life.
Because you bring your real self, your whole self. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you put that. Is that your concluding?
That would be my conclusion.
Yeah. What if you're not bringing value? Because the world needs you, right? Your people need you, and you need you in all your wholeness.
Yeah. And maybe with a little bit more of that understanding and that respect, we could begin to change the country and the lack of respect that's shown.
That's going on out there. Seriously.
Yeah. Maybe we begin
with
ourselves with respect, and then we begin to show it to those we love and those we work with and those in our world, the postman, the grocery store lady. Maybe we could begin to bring the world to a better place. But it begins with being willing to respect ourselves and to let ourselves be loved so that we could pour it out.
Amen. Amen. Couldn't have said it more beautifully. Thank you so much, Tamara Jorden. I love you, and I love this conversation. It's a blessing, and I hope it blesses many, many listeners. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. This concludes another blessed episode of Soul Activation Podcast. I'm Suzanne, Alexandria. You can find this and lots more on my website at suzannealexandria.com. And I know from Tamara's heart and mine, we wish you all a sacred, sacred journey moving forward. Thank you, Tammy.
Amitwofo.
To me, this path of healing and enlightenment is this immaculate process of finding all the parts of us that have been lost and hidden and even taken, and then very masterfully and lovingly recombining ourselves, coming into our true self, and then all of a sudden realizing, oh my gosh, I'm home. Thank you for listening to Soul Activation Podcast. For more information about me, visit SuzanneAlexandria.com. Tune in every second and fourth Monday, 2 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern at transformationtalkradio.com.